Today's topic is solid state. So in the solid state, first we will go for matter. You know that this matter is made up of a large number of constituent particles. These constituent particles are nothing but the building blocks of the matter, and these constituent particles may be atoms, molecules, or the ions. Now the property of this matter, it depends on the nature of the constituent particle and the type of the force that is acting between the constituent particles. Suppose if you take these constituent particles, what type of force is acting between these two? Based on this, the property of the matter is decided. Now this matter, it exists in three physical states. We know that solid, liquid, and gas. The physical state of this matter, it depends on the net effect of two opposing factors. One is the thermal energy and another is intermolecular force of attraction. Now this thermal energy, it tries to keep the constituent particles far away from each other, and this intermolecular force of attraction, it tries to keep the constituent particles very close to each other. Whenever constituent particles are very close to each other, then matter exists in the solid state. If the constituent particles are far away from these two, then the matter exists in what? Gaseous state. That happens when thermal energy is maximum, particles are far away from each other, matter exists in gaseous state. If intermolecular force of attraction is maximum, constituent particles, they come very close to each other, they cling together, and ultimately they exist in the solid state. That's why in this direction intermolecular force of attraction increases, and in this direction thermal energy increases. So that in case of solids, intermolecular force of attractions are very strong, and the distance between the two particles is very less here. So in this solid state, we are studying about solids now, and out of these three, only solids are called as rigid and liquids and gases are called as what? Fluids. Because in case of liquids and gases, the particles are free to move, hence they are having a flow property. So because of that, these liquids and gases are called as what? Fluids. And then in case of solids, the constituent particles are fixed and they are having fixed position, they cannot move and they can oscillate only about their mean position. So because of all these things, these solids are called as what? Rigid. In this one, in case of solids, these particles, they are not free to move about because they are closely packed there. Next point, these are the important properties of solids. They have definite shape, volume, and mass. In case of solids, intermolecular force of attractions are very high. Intermolecular distance are very short because particles are very close to each other. And the next point is they are rigid and incompressible. They cannot be compressed because in the solids, the constituent particles are very close to each other, so that there is no gap between the particles. If I apply the pressure on both sides, they cannot be compressed because there is no space between them. So because of this, what happens? Solids are rigid and incompressible. Next point, further these solids, they are classified into two types, that is crystalline and amorphous solids. See, everything here that depends on the constituent particles. That constituent particles, they will decide the property of the matter based on the arrangement of the constituent particles, based on the nature of the constituent particles, or based on the type of the force that is acting between the constituent particles here. So in case of these solids, they are classified into two types. One is crystalline and another is amorphous, based on the type of the arrangement of constituent particles. In case of crystalline solids, constituent particles are arranged in the regular pattern for the long range, which repeats periodically entire the crystal, so that it produces the perfect shape for the crystalline solids. And in case of amorphous solids, the constituent particles are not arranged in the regular pattern for the long range. These are long range solids, and these are what? Short range solids here. So here the arrangement is for the long range and it is short range. Here that long range periodically repeats, but here that a repeating pattern is not observed in case of amorphous solids. So since these two solids, they are having a different type of arrangement of constituent particles, they must differ in their properties also. Some of the examples of these crystalline solids: NaCl, KNO3, naphthalene, benzoic acid. Okay, these crystalline solids are true solids, and here amorphous solids are called as pseudo solids or super cooled liquids, because the structure of these amorphous solids, it is similar to that of liquids only. Since liquids are having a flow property, similarly amorphous solids are also having flow property, but in case of amorphous solids, that flow property is very slow here. So because of that, they are called as what? Pseudo solids. They are not perfectly solids because they are having the property of the liquids also, that is the flow property. So that they are called as pseudo solids, and they are also called as what? Super cooled liquids. And this, the word amorphous, it is derived from the word amorpho, that is amorphos, that is a Greek word. It means no form. So that they are not having a perfect shape here, they are having irregular shape, and these are having what? Definite shapes here. So we will point out some difference between the crystalline and amorphous. Mainly these are the important points in which they will differ here. First thing we will discuss shape. Crystalline solids are having a definite shape. Amorphous solids, they do not have definite shape, they are having irregular shape. Next thing, melting point. These crystalline solids are having a sharp melting point. For example, if I say the melting point of the crystalline solid is 75 degrees Celsius, means if you heat it to the 75 degrees Celsius, exactly at the 75 degrees Celsius it will melt here. But this is not the case in amorphous, because these amorphous solids, they are not having a sharp melting point. If you heat the amorphous solid, they will not melt at any sharp temperature. They will soften over the range of temperature. It may start melting at a temperature of 75 degrees Celsius to the 100 degrees Celsius. Between these two range, it will slowly melt here. So they are not having sharp melting point here. Next, cleavage property. In case of a cleavage property, suppose if I take a crystalline solid like this, if a crystalline solid is cut with a sharp edged tool, the two new halves that are produced, they are having a smooth surface like this. Suppose if you cut a amorphous solid with a sharp edged tool, the two new halves that are produced, they are having a rough surface like this. This is in case of amorphous, and this is in case of what? Crystalline solids. This is what we call it as cleavage property. Only in case of crystalline solid you will get a smooth surface. In case of amorphous solid you will get what? Rough surfaces here. Next thing, heat of fusion. In case of crystalline solids, they are having definite heat of fusion, and that is not in case of amorphous solids. They are not having definite heat of fusion. Next, anisotropy. Already you studied in the theory classes. Anisotropy is nothing but the physical properties. Whenever they are measured along different direction, they will have different values. Then it is called as what? Anisotropy. So crystalline solids are anisotropic in nature. Amorphous solids are what? Isotropic in nature here. Next, the nature of the solids is what? These are true solids and these are pseudo solids. And what is the order of arrangement of particles? These are long range order, and this is what? Short range order it is. So the next point is, amorphous solids on slow heating, they will convert into what? Crystalline solids, and these crystalline solids on rapid cooling, they will be converted into amorphous solids. This is interconversion between the amorphous and crystalline solids. And the most important point is, amorphous silicon is one of the best photovoltaic material which converts sunlight into electrical current here. And these are the some example for the crystalline solids. Some of the metals are coming under crystalline solids, that is iron, copper, silver, magnesium, and non-metals like phosphorus, sulfur, and iodine. Compounds like NaCl, zinc sulfide, and naphthalene. All these are in the form of what? Crystalline solids. Now the next classification is, these crystalline solids, based on the type of the binding force between the constituent particles, again they are classified into four types: molecular, ionic, metallic, and then networked or covalent solids here. These molecular solids, further there are three types: non-polar, polar, and hydrogen bonded. Now we will see all these subheadings in detail. Now the molecular solids, first point you have to keep in mind, all the type of molecular solids, they are perfect insulators, they will not conduct electricity. And in this one, for entrance point of view, you have to remember what are the constituent particles, what is the type of the binding force between them. So the non-polar, polar, hydrogen bonded molecules. Here in case of non-polar molecular solids, the constituent particles are non-polar molecules, Cl2, H2, CO2, these are non-polar. And along with that, some noble gas atoms like helium or argon also coming under non-polar solids here. Since they are being non-polar in nature, the type of force that existing between them is weak dispersion force, or else it is called as London forces here, and these are soft solids with a low melting point and boiling point here. If you go for polar molecular solids, as the name indicates, the constituent particles are polar molecules, the molecules formed by the polar covalent bond. and since they are being polar in nature, and this is one dipole and this is one dipole, between them dipole dipole interaction is present here. In case of polar molecular solids, dipole dipole interaction is present, and these are also soft solids, and their melting point and boiling point is slightly higher than that of non-polar solids here. Next, if you go for hydrogen bonded molecular solids, as the name indicates, the constituent particles are which are involved in the hydrogen bonding. The polar molecules which are forming hydrogen bond, already we know that hydrogen, it forms hydrogen bonding with more electronegative element like oxygen, fluorine and nitrogen. The molecules which contain these elements, they are involved in what? Hydrogen bonding. This is, for example, in case of water, hydrogen bonding is present, and you can take it as ice here. This is a solid ice, okay, and these are volatile liquid or soft solid at the room temperature. Here the binding force is hydrogen bonding. Okay, this is about molecular solids. Next point, ionic solids. As the name indicates, the constituent particles are ions. In these ionic solids, cations and anions, they are arranged in the three-dimensional network, and they are held together by a strong electrostatic force of attraction. Here the binding force is electrostatic force of attraction. Here this is also called as Coulombic force of attraction, and because of that strong force of attraction, they are having a high melting point and boiling point, and they are hard and brittle in the nature. The important point about the ionic solids is their electrical conductivity. In the solid state, they will not conduct electricity because ions are not free to move here. Next, in case of molten state or in the aqueous medium, ions are free to move, hence they will conduct electricity only in the molten state or in the aqueous medium only. This is important point you have to keep in mind. These are the example for the ionic solids. So next point, so the next type of solids is metallic solids. So in these metallic solids, metal atoms are constituent particles, and here these constituent particles are nothing but the metal ions which are present in the sea of delocalized electrons. These metal ions are surrounded by large number of electrons, and these electrons are delocalized, means they are free to move here. So these are the constituent particles, and since these electrons are free to move, these are responsible for the electrical and thermal conductivity of these metallic solids. Metallic solids, they have very good electrical and thermal conductivity, that is due to the moment of free electrons here, and the force that binds the metal ion and the electron, that is called as what? Metallic bond. And here the binding force is metallic bond, and the constituent particles are what? Metal ions in the sea of delocalized electrons here. And due to the presence of free electrons, these metallic solids, they are what? Luster and color. Luster means they are having shining appearance, and even some of them are colored in nature, and ductile and malleable, which can be drawn into a thin wire and can be hammered into a thin sheet. That is what ductile and malleability. And because of their strong metallic bonding, they are having a fairly high melting and boiling point. And the example for the metallic solids is iron, copper, silver and magnesium. The next type is that is networked solids. So the next type of solids is covalent or networked solids, and these are the crystalline solids of non-metal atoms. These are formed from the non-metal atoms. That's why the constituent particles are non-metal atoms. So here we know that always non-metal atoms, most of the time they will form covalent bonds only. So here these non-metal atoms, they will form a network of covalent bond throughout the crystal in order to form a network. So that is the binding force in these solids is what? Covalent bond. That is a network of covalent bond. Entire the crystal, they will form a network of covalent bond in order to form a giant molecule. Even these are also called as giant molecules. Giant molecules. So that these covalent bonds are strong and they are directional in nature. Because of that directional and strong nature of the covalent bond, these are hard and brittle, and very important point is they are having a very high melting point. Even they will decompose before reaching their melting point. Okay, the next point is they are perfectly insulated, they will never conduct electricity, and they are hard in nature. All the covalent solids are hard and they will not conduct electricity, and the examples are quartz, the formula is SiO2, silicon carbide SiC, and here the allotropes of carbon. In that one carbon, that it is having two allotropes, one is diamond, another is what? Graphite here. This diamond is hard and it will not conduct electricity. In this one, it is having a three-dimensional network of carbon atoms, and where the carbon atom is sp3 hybridized. But in case of graphite, I have written with a star mark. This is exceptional example for the covalent solids, because all the covalent solids are hard, but this graphite is a soft, which is coming under covalent solids. So because of that, what happens? Even it conducts electricity also. The reason for its electrical conductivity is its typical structure. So this graphite, it is having layered structure. In this one, the carbon atoms are having what? sp2 hybridization. In case of graphite, the carbon atoms are arranged in the different layers. In each layer, the carbon atom is connected to the 3 other atoms, and for each carbon atom, the 4th electron, that is free here, and this electron is responsible for the electrical conductivity of the graphite. Okay, this is about covalent solids. One thing you keep in mind, that is in case of covalent solids, they will not conduct electricity. Their main characteristic is they are hard and they are perfect insulators. Only graphite of this family, they will conduct electricity. And highest melting point, they are having what? That is covalent solids. And another point you keep in mind, all the molecular solids, that is the polar, non-polar and hydrogen bonded, all are perfectly insulators. Okay, next point. So we will discuss crystal lattice now. This crystal lattice is nothing but, it is the regular 3-dimensional arrangement of constituent particles inside the crystal. Suppose if I take a crystal structure like this one cube, I will take. In this one, how the constituent particles are arranged, that is indicated by crystal lattice, or it is also called as space lattice. Suppose if I take the constituent particles, that is the 3-dimensional arrangement, these are the constituent particles which are present inside the crystal, like this we will take. Now this regular, the 3-dimensional arrangement of constituent particles inside the crystal, that is called as what? Crystal lattice. This is nothing but the array of the points which shows how the constituent particles are arranged in the crystal, that is called as what? Crystal lattice. And each point in the crystal lattice, it will indicate one constituent particle. One constituent particle. And this is nothing but each point in the crystal lattice, it is also called as lattice point, we call it as. Lattice point is nothing but the constituent particles. Whenever these lattice points are joined together by a straight line, it will produce the structure of entire solid like this. We have to join the points with a straight line. Okay, so whenever these lattice points are joined by a straight line, it will produce the structure of entire crystal it is. So the arrangement of these points in the 3-dimensional space, that is called as what? Crystal lattice or the space lattice. Now these lattice points are joined by the straight line that will produce the structure of entire solid. So that crystal lattice is nothing but, basically it is the structure of entire solid. Crystal lattice, this crystal lattice basically it is structure of entire solid. Structure of entire solid. Okay. Now this crystal, it is made up of large number of small crystals like this. If you arrange these small crystals in all the direction, then you will get this large crystal. So this is the smallest portion of this crystal, because this large crystal, it is made up of large number of these small crystals. So this is called as what? It is the smallest portion of the crystal lattice. The smallest portion of the crystal lattice, which can be repeated in all the direction to produce the structure of entire solid. That is called as what? Unit cell, we call it as. The smallest portion of the crystal lattice which can be repeated in all the direction to produce the structure of entire solid, that is called as what? Unit cell. One such unit cell I have drawn here. This is called as unit cell. Okay. Now each unit cell, it is characterized by 6 parameters, that is its dimension along the edges. This is these are the 3 edges which are indicated by the red lines. This is A, B and C are the edge lengths. Edge length is A, B, C. Then the angle between the edges, alpha, beta and gamma. Okay, each unit cell is characterized by 6 parameters, that is edge length ABC and angle between the edges alpha, beta and then gamma it is. Now another important point you have to concentrate, in a cube how many types of lattice points or constituent particles may be there. This is the lattice point which is present at the corner, this is called as what? Corner particle, and the particle which is present at the center of the face, this is face centered particle. This I have taken as one face. Okay, at the center of the face one constituent particle is there, this is the face centered particle. Now inside the cube at the center one lattice point is present, that is called as what? At the body center, the lattice point which is present at the body center we call it as. Now the point which is present at this one, this is called as what? Edge center point, because this is the edge and at the center of edge it is what? It is present here, so it is called as what? Edge center. So this is the corner particle, face centered particle at the center of the face, body center particle at the center of the cube, and then edge center particle on the center of the edge here. Okay, next point. So in a cube total 8 corner particles are there and total 6 face centered particle, because 6 faces are there. In a cube surrounding 4 faces and above one and below one, total 6 faces. So that 6 faces nothing but 6 walls. So that here 6 face centered particle will be there, that is 6 faces, and in total 12 edges are there. These lines are called as what? Edges. In total 12 edges are there, so that 12 edge center particles will be there here. Okay, so body center, only one body center is there, the particle which is present inside the cube, that is body centered particle here. Now in a cube if I take one face, along one face if I draw a diagonal, that will be called as what? Face diagonal, that is in the face I will draw the diagonal, and this is called as what? Face diagonal. And another is what? This is the body diagonal, the line which is passing through the center of the cube and that touches 2 corners of the cube here. So this is what? Body diagonal. Here you see here, every 2 corner one body diagonal is possible, so that every 2 corner one body diagonal. Total 4 body diagonals are possible, because 8 corners 4 body diagonals are possible here. So that each faces 2 diagonals are possible. You can draw this as one face diagonal and this is also another face diagonal. Similarly 6 faces are there, so that 12 face diagonals are possible here. So this is very basic thing you have to remember: corner particle, face centered particle, body centered particle, edge centered particle, then body diagonal and face diagonal. This is very basic thing in the solid state. The game that lies in these things only. Okay, the next point. So the next point is the classification of unit cells. There are 2 types of unit cells are there. One is a primitive unit cell and another is a non-primitive unit cell. This primitive is also called as a simple unit cell. Non-primitive is also called as what? Centered unit cells here. In this one, primitive unit cell, that is only one type is there, that is a simple cubic unit cell. This is nothing but simple cube. The simple cubic unit cell in which it contains only 8 corner particles. The unit cell which contains only corner particle is called as what? A simple cubic unit cell. In that one the lattice point number will be equal to 8 here. If you come to the non-primitive unit cells, in that one the first one is the body centered unit cell. This body centered unit cell, it has 8 corner particles and 1 body center particle. Means 8 corner particles are there. 8 corner particles are common in almost all unit cell. Okay, the only the variation is the position other than the corner here. Okay, body centered unit cell, as the name indicates, it is having 8 corner particle plus 1 body centered particle. 8 corner plus 1 body center, total number of lattice point is 9 here. Face centered unit cell, it is having 8 corner particle and 6 face centered particle. 1 particle at the center of the each face, so that 6 faces are there. That's why 8 corner particles and 6 face centered particle, total number of lattice points is 14 here. In case of end centered unit cell, it is having 8 corner particle and 2 face centered particle at the center of any 2 opposite faces. Like this you can take 2 opposite faces, or these 2 are the opposite faces, or these 2 are the opposite faces. Any 2 opposite faces you take 2 face centered particle. Total number of lattice point is 8 plus 2 is equal to 10 here. Now already we have discussed crystal lattices, that is the 3-dimensional arrangement of constituent particles in the space which gives the structure of entire crystal here. So in that one there are 14 different possibilities in which you can arrange the constituent particles in the space. That 14 three-dimensional lattices are called as what? Bravais lattices, that is the scientist name here. Okay, these 14 different possibilities, they are grouped into 7 crystal system, namely cubic, tetragonal, orthorhombic, rhombohedral, hexagonal, monoclinic, and then triclinic here. The most important point for entrance is, for NEET or JEE purpose, you have to remember their edge length and angle between the edges, so that their parameter they will ask here. Okay, so the simple trick for that one is, here you have to start from here, A equal to B equal to C, A equal to B not equal to C, A not equal to B, B not equal to C here. The same pattern again you have to repeat. These three set again you have to repeat. A equal to B equal to C, A equal to B not equal to C, A is equal to A not equal to B not equal to C. Again it is triclinic, same thing you write, A not equal to B not equal to C here. And if you go for angle between the edges, for these cubic, tetragonal and orthorhombic, alpha equal to beta equal to gamma equal to 19, all these three cases. Then here alpha equal to beta equal to gamma, which is not equal to 90 here. In case of hexagonal, alpha equal to beta equal to 90, gamma equal to 120. Here you take alpha equal to gamma is equal to 90, beta is not equal to 90, and here it is alpha not equal to beta not equal to gamma not equal to 90. One thing you keep in mind, this triclinic system is most unsymmetrical crystal system among the 7 systems here. And again they will ask here which type of unit cells are possible. In case of cubic, these 3 are possibilities, means already I told you 14 different possibilities are grouped into 7 crystal system. In cubic these 3 are possible: simple, BCC, FCC. Simple, BCC. Here simple, BCC, FCC, end centered. All 4 are possible here. Here only simple cube is possible. Simple cube is possible. Here simple cube, end centered is possible, and again it is simple cube is possible here. So that if you add all these, you will get the total number will be equal to 14. So that all the 7 crystal system, they are having what? 14 different possibilities here. This is what? Next point. So the next important point is contribution of each particle towards the unit cell. Whatever the lattice points are present, all of them are not present inside the unit cell 100%. Their contribution is different here. Suppose if I take a lattice point or a particle which is present inside the cube, that is at the center of the body, okay, body centered particle, this is 100% inside the cube only. So 100% inside the cube means its contribution towards the unit cell is 1, we can take here. Suppose if you take the face centered particle, it is a shared between the 2 unit cell, so half of this only present in 1 unit cell and half is present in the other unit cell. So only 50% of this particle is present inside, so its contribution is what? 1 by 2 here. Face centered particle contribution is 1 by 2. Next, if you go for edge centered particle, the particle which is present at the center of the edge, only 25% of this particle is present inside the crystal here. So its contribution you have to take what? 1 by 4 here. Next, the particle which is present at the corner, only 12.5% is inside the unit cell here. So what happens? Its contribution will be equal to 1 by 8. So here we have written corner particle contribution is 1 by 8, face centered particle is its contribution is 1 by 2, body centered particle contribution is 1, and edge centered particle its contribution is what? 1 by 4 here. Now the number of particles present per unit cell. In 1 unit cell, how many number of particles are there? Effective number of particles, that is we call it as Z value. Now in case of simple cube, it is having only 8 corner particles, 8 corner particle, and contribution of each corner particle is 1 by 8. So the total value will come out as what? Only 1 here. So 1 unit cell of a simple cube, it has only 1 particle in its unit cell here. Suppose if you go for body centered unit cell, it has 8 corner particle and 1 body centered particle. 8 corner particle you have to write, then its contribution is what? 1 by 8 here, plus 1 body centered particle. So for body centered particle, what is the contribution? 1 here. So we have taken completely 1. So the total number of particle is what? 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. In BCC, the number of particle per unit cell is equal to 2 here. Face centered particle, okay, that is a face centered unit cell. In this one, 8 corner particles are there and 6 face centered particles are there. 8 corner particle contribution is what? 1 by 8. 6 corner particle, its contribution is what? 1 by 2. The total number is 1 plus 3 is equal to 4. FCC Z value is equal to 4. End centered unit cell, it has 8 corner particle, 2 face centered particle. 8 corner particle contribution 1 by 8. 2 face centered particle contribution is 1 by 2. So the total number is equal to what? 2 here. So ECC and BCC both are having same number of Z value here. Okay.